Yep, yeah, we have a quorum technically.
Oh,
Okay, you're live.
all right, so, 1 second. I had the open meeting law remarks. Where'd that go?
I can put it up on screen.
I had it a minute ago.
You're probably sitting on them.
Oh, here they are. Consistent with chapter 107 of the Acts of 2022. This meeting will be conducted by remote participation. The public may not physically attend this meeting, but every effort will be made to allow the public to view and listen to the meeting in real time and participate when necessary. All motions and votes of the Affordable Housing Trust at this and future remote meetings will be by roll call vote. With that, we'll call the meeting to order. I am Mike Luster, Chair of the Affordable Housing Trust. David,
David Fields, the Community Development Director.
Greg,
Greg Cudum-Torrey, Planning Director.
MJ,
MJ Boylan, member of the trust.
Chris,
Chris McCarthy, member of the trust.
Deanna.
Oh, she muted herself.
Yeah,
Still mute.
we're gonna have to hear the birds, Deanna, and you're gonna have to unmute yourself.
Oh, I thought I had. Okay, I'll stay unmuted, but if the birds get it too loud, let me know.
Alright.
So Deanna Fay, member of the trust.
Ruth,
Ruth Pino, member of the trust.
perfect. Next item on the list is the recap of the CPC presentation. Several of you, Chris was actually my right-hand man that night, literally, right to my right. And Deanna was the presenter, so I thank her for her presentation skills and putting that together. I felt like I stumbled and stammered a couple of times, but I think
Really
I
great.
think it went okay, and I've heard from other folks that it went well. So we'll see what happens. I think we made our pitch, and I don't know if anyone has any comments about that.
Should one of us attend their next meeting? Because it's an open meeting and they might be deciding on, whether or not to give us the money.
Yeah, if I have notification, I can log in as I'm not obviously as a panelist, but someone to view it for sure. And might be helpful if everyone can do it if they are available. Do we know what
Yeah.
that is, David? Do they have a standing meeting like the second Tuesday of every, like,
Actually checking right now.
Is there some sense of when they are making a decision?
So their last meeting was the 20th, so they won't have one again till the 11th of July.
okay,
I think if anything, it'll be educational to get on it as well.
yeah, I can try to do that. I'm on
I'll get on it.
vacation, but it's a staycation. I'll watch on my phone at Good Harbor. July 11th, got it. Any other comments about the CPC presentation? Anything that was missed? Anything that we could have done better?
I think you did a great job, Mike. Thank you so much for
Oh, thank you,
for
Deanna.
being the face of the trust.
Thank you. Couldn't have done it without your presentation skills. That's about it on that topic. We'll just see what they say. We'll pop on the 11th. Anyone that can make it, I'll certainly try to do that. And we'll see if anything comes up. Did anything come up on the 20th?
No,
Okay,
So they're still meeting by Zoom, correct?
yes.
So what time is their meeting?
So it looks like this is scheduled for. They meet at 6, yeah, 6
Yeah.
p.m.
I have a conflict that night, otherwise I'd join them.
all right.
What's the
Terrific.
date again? I'm so sorry. What's the
July
date?
11th.
At what
which-
time?
That sounds like a Tuesday. If July 4th is a Tuesday, July 11th is a Tuesday. That's 6
11.
p.m.
Yep.
Yeah, no,
that's
I
Tuesday.
won't be able to make it. I've got a board meeting of another organization. I'm sorry. I'd like to go.
So.
Yeah.
Well, it's recorded, so
Yep.
you can always watch the recording afterwards.
Oh, right, yeah, good point.
Okay. Next topic, clarification about ARPA funding will be dispersed to AHT projects. Deanna brought this up. I think we brought it up in the last meeting we had on when we're gonna see the funds, and I don't think any of us were really educated on how the funds will be received by the trust. But Greg, I think you followed up with an email to me that before we're awarded funds, we have to have a use of the funds. Can someone elaborate on that?
Yeah, I'm Dave could probably chime in as well. The ARPA funding is kind of a fairly specific process where it has to be identified for a specific use. So I think early on in the discussion with the administration of how they were going to move, kind of designate funding for certain activities, they're kind of called kind of large buckets. They can't just be parked into an account without a real specific purpose associated with them. So I would envision, if there's like a program that's developed that you're anticipating of using a certain chunk of funding for it, at that point, those funds would be moved over to then administer that particular program. Or if there was a project that you were looking to fund with a certain amount, when it's gone to the point of contracting, knowing specifically what its purpose is, it would be moved over to be transferred out of your account.
So I think, oh,
Go ahead, David.
I was going to say, so I think just to add on to what Greg said, he's correct. We were, in an ideal world, we could move the funds over to the trust and that would count as encumbrance for the federal government's purposes, but turns out it does not. So just be cognizant that the date for that is December 31st, 2024. So it is about ripe for time for projects to start being identified.
Can you repeat that deadline of December 31st? That's when the funds have to be used?
Encumbered. So you can expend after
I
that,
gotcha.
but you'd need project identification and to say, allocate whatever it may be. We're buying a 5-unit building, say, here's the money for that.
So let's say we do identify a project. Is that something that where the funds move quickly, or do we have to apply to the federal government to get that portion released, or is it already with the city?
It's with the city. We do have to go through an internal process to allocate those, and the mayor ultimately needs to weigh in on that. But
Okay.
once projects are identified, it's an internal process, making it slightly easier.
Okay.
Can I make a suggestion? Is it, I think it would be feasible for us to have maybe an ARPA subcommittee who can maybe put together an outline of what the affordability requirements are regarding ARPA. So what we can and cannot do that we can share with the full membership, and maybe start to think about some incentivizing opportunities that we can use for the money. And I don't know, just throwing off the top of my head, like maybe something with ADUs or something to create some affordable units within the city. Something that might tie in with another city incentive, like I said, ADUs, or if anybody has other ideas, I think it's great that we can maybe, put together a list and present that at an upcoming meeting. But if we can get a little work team going, that would be great.
May I suggest that Greg and Dave, not necessarily tonight, but give us an update on how the grants department works in Gloucester and what they're already doing around housing. The first-time homebuyer loan. I don't know if there's still a lead paint program. It would just really be helpful to all of us, I think, to understand what's already out there. And because what you just said, Deanna, partnering with it would make sense.
So we still do first-time home buyers. We also do housing rehabilitation. We are right now out of the lead game, but we are looking to get back in. We're actually contemplating going forward into the fall, getting back into the lead game, but that would require staffing, which would be fully funded by entitlement grants. So it wouldn't be on the city coffers, but that's a good program to get into. I will will say too, I don't know how much this parlays into the conversation, but if we're talking about housing consultants or consultants for executing the strategic plan later on in the meeting, that could probably be coupled with the ARPA conversation as well, rather than, I know we've talked a lot, like it can't be on all of you as individuals to spend 35 hours a week on this stuff. So just for what that's worth.
I'm certainly in favor of divvying up the responsibility here for sure, and I'm in favor of a subcommittee.
I'd be willing to be on that subcommittee. I feel like, because we have a window here, that I think we should at least start thinking about how this will work or could work. And be, as part of our strategic plan, let's be proactive about it. And start thinking about what we can do with that kind of money. We're not necessarily taking direction from the mayor's administration, correct, on how that money gets spent. This is something that the Affordable Housing Trust has some ability to create their own programs around it. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, I think for the most part, acting in an advisory capacity to him as well for anything that needs a city function to happen would be a good resource. I will say that the ARPA funding too, there are some restrictions in terms of, like you used the word creating programming. You may be able to use it to get something going and prop it up, but obviously you wouldn't be able to use it. It needs to be sustainable going forward, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I mean, I think the first step could be just outlining what we can and cannot do with the money, I think would be important for us and helpful.
Could someone explain to me and the public a little bit about the ARPA funds, how they, with the amount and how they're generally distributed?
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, David.
I guess in what, coming from the federal government or how they're dispersed, you mean?
The amount, we have a dedicated amount to the city right now.
Yeah, so every community got a dedicated amount
Yeah.
dispersed in 2 tranches. And there's different restrictions on portions of the funding. So up to $10 million can be used, I think is what they're calling general government. And then the rest needs to be allocated into those individual buckets that Greg was mentioning before, most of which the rules and regulations are outlined around infrastructure. So given it's a recovery program, they one, want you to spend the money quickly, but 2, it was for reinvestment, into communities, into infrastructure projects, into getting everybody back on their feet. But obviously part of that is housing.
What was the total? $20 million?
23.
23. And we were allocated 1.5, Chris.
Yeah, that's.
Thanks, David.
Sure.
I think the best bet would be for the July meeting. Let's get an idea of what the funds can and can't be used for. That'd be a great topic for the July meeting. Is that the first item for the ARPA subcommittee?
We can do that. Is there any other members of this subcommittee?
I wonder, didn't you have assistance from Heather in creating the grant application?
I did.
So since Heather is
Maybe we
not
can recruit her
here,
again.
I am going to anoint Heather as a member of that subcommittee.
I like it.
What happens when you're not here?
Ideally, it probably makes sense to have 3 members so that if you only have 2, you have a quorum, so 2 people can meet. But if you have 3 and just make a motion to establish a subcommittee to investigate the uses of ARPA funding for the
Yeah, I
trust.
figured 3 was the correct amount. Joe Bertolino's lucky he logged on because he would have been the other one. But we anointed him as the treasurer, remember? Is this?
That's right.
Thank you, Pope Lester.
Is there someone else who'd like to join that subcommittee?
What's the mission of the subcommittee and how long will it be in operation? Is it just to prepare for the July meeting?
Well, at first, I think we're gonna want to know what we can and can't use the funds for. And I think going forward, I think the subcommittee would be
give us a framework. of how-
somewhat, no, I don't know how regularly it is. That's a relative term on, ideas and brainstorming on how to use the funds.
When's our July meeting?
It'll be the third Tuesday of the month. This one got pushed out because of Juneteenth.
Oh, right. So is it the 4th? Oh, no, that was June.
I
So
would
it's the
say it
se-
would probably be the 17th.
Yeah, I won't be here. Oh, well, I can attend remotely, duh. Yeah. From my beach chair.
You sure, Mike, it's the 17th?
I'm not sure, but that's the third Monday.
Well, David, Greg,
So I have in my calendar.
It's the 17th is
Yeah.
the third Monday.
okay, perfect.
I'm not just winging things here, Ruth.
No, I'm away then too, but remote works.
So I will say I could try to look into what, how the funds can be allocated in terms of within their buckets, what they can do. I will just caveat that slightly with the answer may be somewhat similar to CDBG funds where it depends on what you want to do. So we'll come up with the broad strokes, but there may be more specifics that need to be worked out as we move forward.
So we-
Are you able to just confirm, I mean, this has been a question that I've been thinking about, given that we have a municipal election coming up. If for any reason the administration changes leadership, that there's no possibility for those funds to be reallocated in any other way, right? Once it's promised, it's promised.
a great question.
I think the key word you used there was a promise. Once it's been encumbered, I think is a different story.
Right.
Yeah,
So
But
until
isn't it promised in the name of the city? So I mean, whoever's, got that titular role, they have the authority to do it at the time. Can it be revoked by a successor?
that's what I'm asking.
Yeah, I
Right.
know, but I'm asking sort of rhetorically, it doesn't seem like that should happen.
I mean, as far as I know, unless and until they're encumbered, things could be reallocated. I don't think that's against the rules. Would that happen? That's all just speculation at this point.
Okay.
All right. Is Dave, Heather, and Deanna, are you gonna work through David on the
Sure.
do's
Yep,
and don'ts?
And I can reach out to Heather too.
Yep. Okay, did we have anyone else interested in working on that? Okay. All right, for now, we'll keep it at that and forever hold your peace. Report on short-term rental allocations. Someone want to elaborate on what we were looking for there? Oh, no, I remember, Deanna, we all actually had questions on the 50 some odd thousand that we received in our account last year was for what year? And
Mhm.
when are the additional allocations coming? I believe that's what the question is.
Yeah, and just also, it was my understanding when the first allocation was made that the state pays the city in two payments, and that the second payment came like late December, I think was the time frame, and so it wouldn't be distributed until the next year. So you would get, like, say for 2022, we would have received a payment in 2022, but the second payment for 2022 would come in early 2023. So that's just the way that I recall it being explained then.
Would it make sense for maybe Joe or I to reach out to Connor or John Dunn to clarify that?
Yep.
This Connor was, I think that's how you pronounce his name, was very helpful today in getting me bank statements. So Joe, you or I can try to get a better understanding on how those STR allocations will be forwarded to us, and maybe get a better idea of what exactly the 50,000 we received was, just so we know what period that amount covered for us. And when we'll get future allocations, and we can chat offline about one of us reaching out to John.
Right, because the program began in 2022, correct?
I thought it was 21.
Maybe it is. So the
And
first.
that's why that's what I thought the allocation was for in 22, for 21.
Was-
That's
was
why
for
I think it's
21.
best that we reach out and make sure we have a good
Right,
good
right.
understanding about this. Joe,
Yeah,
you got something?
I think it's based on a fiscal year schedule, but then the rectification of free cash and everything doesn't happen until, basically the end of that following calendar year. So you're almost like, it was for a year and then it was 6 months later that you got the first allocation. So, this is something new with having a reoccurring revenue stream. So I think if Joe, you and Mike have a conversation, kind of map it out a little bit so that, it's sometimes these things only start happening until you go, hey, wait a minute, aren't we supposed to be getting that? And then you have to go through and reinvent the wheel and get the transfer. So maybe it'd be a good opportunity to kind of map it out so you know when to start pinging and asking when the next allocation will be.
Sound good? Joe? Financial reporting update. I think that piggybacks off the short-term rental allocation. I actually received bank statements today for the last few months. Remember, the balance was almost $269,000. However, we've got 200 of that pledged for the YMCA project.
When is it expected to be paid? Like, what's the schedule for that?
I don't know.
They haven't asked for it, Greg?
I'm pretty sure that it was, it's more on a delivery basis, like a reimbursement, because they did
Okay.
inquire early on what funding they would have available to begin the project. And I believe the agreement has it coming much later in the game, which was, again, read your contract. But so I think it's probably closer to the term of construction.
Okay. Because it was the local leverage money, and it's just interesting as to when the schedule of paying it is.
Yeah, I think certainly from the eyes of DHCD and other funders, looking at that local commitment. But then, we have, the trust has agreements, the city often has agreements that it's kind of on a reimbursable basis. So you don't just hand it over. It's once it's completed.
Yep.
And there was an application for this project somewhere, because I think that was before I joined the board. So I'm assuming that once we start working into the website updates, like applications and things like that will be available for the public to review for transparency. How does that work? Or is there thoughts around how it will work?
So this was, it has to be 3 years ago, maybe even 4.
Mhm.
I don't know where the time goes, but so I don't know where to find the original application, but there are definitely minutes and meeting notes for having, they made a presentation with building plans, what their plan for occupancy was, the number of units, the age restrictions. It was a very formal presentation.
I have a hard copy of it somewhere in my file here.
Yeah, I would assume that there would be a digital record of the application at least.
Yeah, the application was approved by us and then approved by the council. So it's probably held in several places with the city, but I know I just have it as hard copy. So I could probably make an electronic copy if I put my hands on it and forward it over to people if they want to see it.
Yeah, since it's been a while and we have several new members on the board, it might be a good idea just to do maybe an overview of it. So people are familiar with this if we're going to allocate that funding this year. or
Well,
award it.
actually, Deanna, if you wanted to give an overview, maybe it makes sense to call them in and ask Chris Labasco if he can come give us an update. That's what makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Because, I mean, we have like 4 new members who aren't familiar with it.
And some old members that don't remember it that precisely.
That probably was 4 years ago.
Yeah,
Okay. Ruth, do you not, would you like to invite Chris?
I don't know that I have his contact information, but I will look right this second, but I can do it through Irina. I can do that tonight. She's the executive director of the Gloucester.
The YMCA, yeah, the local one.
YMCA.
Yeah.
Yep.
That would be terrific. See if he's available on the 17th.
I'm on it.
And I assume that
Go ahead.
balance, Greg or David, that balance I reported does includes the payment to Jen Goldson. We already paid her, correct? We were invoiced and
Yes.
paid that.
We
That's
have
really-
done that.
That's really the last item we paid out of that for a while, so. And then the 200 that we have allocated. Any questions on the financial reporting?
So we will have an actual financial report for next meeting?
Well, what is it you're thinking is a financial report, Deanna?
I mean, I don't know. I'm just assuming there's some sort of ledger type
So
It's the
report
bank-
that is shared amongst the trust.
For the-
um,
so the-
and
for the-
something,
for the past I don't know, 13 years,
yeah,
how many years have we been doing?
Close, you're close.
I every 6 months, I would get a bank statement from the treasurer's office and report on the balance in the account. That's pretty much it. So I figured that wouldn't be that heavy of a lift for Joe every 6 months.
I'm very weak, Mike.
But now it sounds like we're looking for more
We're probably gonna,
detailed reporting.
Listen, I took a couple of accounting classes in college, so maybe I'll be able to pull something together.
I
But-
get, Deanna, I get what you're saying. I mean, now
I
that
mean,
we've got an upper allocation. There's a potential for us to receive another funding source. For years, you have to remember, we were sitting on one amount, not much coming in and out, so
Well, nothing coming in really.
nothing coming in.
yeah,
Based
I,
on, just based on some discussions and information that Connor was kind enough to send to me earlier this month. He gave me a starting balance of this year or an ending balance of last year, which we used as a starting balance of this year. What monies came in, what money's gone out, and a year-to-date balance along with a kind of like the 200 grand encumbrance for the YMCA and the pending 1.5 million for ARPA. Other than me just saying, here was the ending balance, here's our starting balance, here's what's come in and out, here's our balance right now. I haven't seen the bank statements, so I'd like to take a look at those because the other reports as a non-government employee almost had me smashing my head against the wall. So
Well,
I'm
actually,
going to,
go ahead. I'm so sorry, Joe. Go ahead.
oh, no, I'm long-winded, so by probably next meeting, I'll throw something together. It's not gonna be, I'll have it in a pretty font, but other than that, it's not gonna be too exciting.
Well,
So, Joe-
actually, the work that was done on the CPC application has all of the grant money that was issued and paid out. And that's a great piece to use. Just use that.
Sounds good.
and for me, I mean, I'm just thinking, as we move forward, I completely understand that the trust has worked in a way, up until we've finalized our strategic plan, but I feel like moving forward, You know, like we don't have minutes for the public to be able to go back and reference. We, you know, there's information that would be helpful for the public so that they can, you know, understand the work that we're doing, and be able to track that, and reach
So I
out to
think
us if there's questions, but we don't have any place to direct people to if they have questions. I've been on the board now for more than a year and I've not seen any kind of financial reporting. So I don't know how that stuff gets disseminated within the group. And
Yeah.
I feel like with the new strategic plan, it should be sort of part of our moving forward.
I
Um,
definitely need to get a little bit more sophisticated. And I think just from short-term planning of what we're gonna be taking on, help us with our long-term as well. I think to see where funds, like Dave mentioned, where when something's it's good to have a sheet of paper that says, well, these gotta be sent out before the December of 2024. And then we can, you know, really sort of strategize on how we make sure we meet the guidelines as well. So I think it's a nice basic financial summary on projects and what we hope to fund and what, you know, we just don't want to miss any timelines. And I think it'd be a good idea for sure.
And also, we had minutes for years. There was an employee assigned to the trust from the Community Development Department. And I'm not remembering when that ended. So, but we used to have minutes all the time.
I think
Well,
Mike has.
it started with one of the, I mean, I was the minutes taker in the beginning, I believe. And then we had someone from the city do it, I guess.
Yes, yep.
Yeah, we rotated minutes for many years. And then someone from the city started doing it.
would that be something, David, that will be the new staff person would do once that's resolved?
Which new staff person?
To do meeting minutes?
Sorry, do you mean new staff person in my department?
Yes,
Right,
David, there was a staff person assigned to us. We're going way back long before pandemic. And someone that regularly we communicated with and who did the minutes.
I believe the last person was Sandy Shea, probably.
Well, Sandy Shea, and there's another one and I can't think of her name.
Jamie?
Jamie, yes, that was one, but even before that.
I remember Sandy and Jamie. So just because there are some action items like coming out of this, I took some notes, so I'll be able to respond to all of us with what people are. But I don't think I want to be responsible at every meeting for doing the minutes.
Mike, is this something that we could, you know, the start of every meeting, you know, Mike, you did it this time, I'll do it next time.
Yeah.
Ruth, you'll do it in August. And that's something we say right at the beginning, say, okay. And then, you know, you sharpen your pencils. And so
Chris just ducked out of the screen when you did that, but he's definitely not immune from minutes. So I'll definitely do it this time, and then
I'll do it in July.
then we'll rotate it.
Debbie Laurie was the other one.
Debbie Laurie, yeah, great.
yeah, I think it would be great if we could rotate, and then what happens with those then get posted to our page like they do the agendas?
That's how it used to happen.
Bring
Okay,
it to the
super.
next meeting, bring it to the next meeting or just.
No, you have to get it ahead of time so you can post the minutes with the agenda.
Yeah, well, we have to approve it really before we
Yeah.
publicly post. Yeah.
Okay, that's great. I think we should absolutely do that.
All right.
Do we have to vote on that?
The vote on
No.
what?
On,
Minutes? No, I think it's more clerical.
on
Yeah.
determining that we're gonna start taking minutes?
When-
I
when-
No, I don't think so. I don't think it's
Okay,
necessary.
good.
All right. Review discussion on consulting scope of services.
So I had sent around couple scopes of work, I think based on one of the past meetings. I don't think it was the most immediate, but at some point we did discuss it. I think I said I'd follow up. So I sent a few things around. Believe it or not, it was more difficult than I thought it would be to find something tailored to what it is that this group's trying to do. They were mostly regional services. So that being said, there's a model for regional services. In addition, I actually had somebody from Danvers reach out and asked if they wanted to buddy up and pay somebody to get more buying power. So that's an option on the table if anybody would like to do that. But more or less, this was really trying to put together a scope to hire somebody to start execution of the strategic plan or any other initiatives that you feel you want to do. I know we're off to a good start with the CPA application, but there's, we can keep running down the list, and at some point we're going to run out of bandwidth as a group, so it'd be good to have some hired guns on their docket.
I could tell you had a difficulty because I think there was even a scope of services from Minneapolis, and
Yes, there was. It's an idealist, I guess you'd call it. Maybe not a direct pull of services, but so I don't know if we want to discuss, put something together, execute. Anybody interested at all?
I'd like to hear more about what is going to fall under their description of services. What we're I guess maybe David, when you sort of put it out there, you had a list in mind of some of the tasks that would be involved or duties and responsibilities. What would those be?
I mean, I didn't really have a list. Like I said, it was mostly just we can go through the plan and allocate what we want to get taken care of and sort of, not leave it to them, but to say, you're the idea people. We need somebody to actually move the ball forward on getting whatever it is done. So, I mean, I've seen it in the past. I think I mentioned things like monitoring units, see what's coming off the rules for restrictions, what's recently been added, adding things to the SHI, actually getting deed restrictions recorded, following through and making sure developers are in fact, going to the registry, getting it recorded, doing what they're supposed to do, whether it's in perpetuity, whether it's not in perpetuity. I mean, we don't have a significant volume, honestly, to monitor or even to track necessarily. But there's things like that they could do. There's a host of other things like setting up programs you had discussed earlier, Deanna, whatever those may be. So
Save some for you, Mark.
So a lot of that is just part of community development, right? So what would be, I guess I'm thinking more of what specifically for the Affordable Housing Trust, as opposed to
things that you want to spend your money on. I mean, the Affordable Housing Trust as a entity with its money doesn't fall under the umbrella of execution for community development. So if there's things you wanted to do with the funding that you have and the scope that you currently develop for the strategic plan to execute, there's programs that like the entitlement grant that gets utilized by the public through community development, but you kind of exist as a separate entity with your own funding source. So if you want to execute those services, whatever they may be, that was kind of to spur the discussion to talk about it. It was part of the strategic plan to hire a consultant to get some work done.
Okay, so in my head, I was thinking it was going to be more along the line. I know in our strategic plan, for example, we have to upgrade our webpage presence with, an application, sort of a, what are the requirements of our applications, and just making it more of a one-stop type setup for applicants for affordable housing trust funding. So are you saying that role would not include that?
I guess what I'm saying is it can be whatever it is that you want it to be.
It's
Whatever
really
you
up
want
to us, I think is
Yeah.
what he's saying.
You can point
Okay,
them in
so
whatever
I guess,
direction.
yeah, that's what I'm trying to get a feel of, like, separate from what role that person is going to have within community development, but more specifically what they would do for the Affordable Housing Trust. I guess I'm just trying to get a clearer picture.
I guess I wasn't trying to conflate it as them being in community development. They're a hired consultant. They don't work for the city. They don't work for me. They're whatever the trust wants them to do is what
Okay.
they'll do. which
So
is
it's
kind of the
not- it's-
benefit is,
Yeah, so it's not like they'd be sitting in an office of the city
no,
4 hours a day on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. If the trust wants to hire this consultant for X amount of dollars to revamp the website, help design and create an application, make it
Mhm.
accessible to the public, then we would hire them to do so. It sounds like that's on a project basis.
yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
and that's something that we can't manage within staff
Yeah.
now, so we would need to, that would be something, obviously, then I would be in favor of having someone do as
I
a
think-
consultant.
I think it might have been Mary John or Ruth who mentioned it a while ago, who brought up the question regarding assistance from community development in helping with the website and the application and whatnot. So is that
I think we can
something
work
that,
with, the website could be overhauled, I think, through working through the IT department, but the application itself is, you know, it kind of depends on what you guys want to see. So that would be where having a professional set of eyes would be helpful. I mean, additionally, too, you have to remember if somebody does this all day, every day, they can probably bang that out in much quicker time than anybody here could.
Right.
Right.
Would they have the ability to actually upgrade the website, or is that still relying on the IT, on the staff IT?
I guess it would depend on where you want to go. If you want to just maintain the public facing website through the city, like the city's page, what everything else looks like, it would just be same format, you know, same fonts, same colors and everything like that with just new information.
Mhm.
If you wanted to go outside that and have the trust have its own webpage, you could do so. I will say that could work out wonderfully, or it could just be yet another page that somebody needs to try and find. All with them too, like what do other communities do? What have they done in the past? What works? What doesn't work?
David,
'Cause
who do you suggest we contact in IT?
Just to generally update the page, you can send email to my administrative assistant and she'll put in a ticket. We have a ticket system, so they assign work based on a health ticket.
Well, I was thinking first, just maybe we could reach out to IT to see what can be done, and is there someone in particular that we could start a conversation with? To know what limitations are and,
I'll shoot you the email address. Yeah, the director over there is Ryan Knowles, but I can send you
yep,
the contact.
right.
Like what somebody said a minute ago was about someone who's project-based. Makes a lot of sense because doing the research that none of us know where to start with. So how do we find that person?
But I think that was like, once we develop the scope, once that's out there, we could put it out for bid publicly. And that's when, you know, we'd kind of see who's out there, who's not, and see what we get back. There are a handful of organizations that I'm aware of that do this. To be honest, they're mostly sole proprietors. And I've worked with them in the past, but all very good. It's just a question of who would actually respond. But I think, you know, in order to have somebody respond, they need an idea of what it is the group wants them to do. But I mean, it could be as simple as saying, here's the money we have, you know, say you wanted to take ARPA. Let's develop a project list. What can we do with that money? What can we spend it on? What can't we? What are the restrictions?
Well, you just said it. You just said it so clearly, is what can we spend it on and what can't we? We probably need to know that before we talk around in circles around the things we would like to do.
Well, I feel like we sort of talked about that at the start of the meeting when we talked about putting together a subcommittee, that the subcommittee would be looking at what are some of the things that we can do and cannot do with ARPA money. I think that stuff's probably available on the state website and within, you know, state ARPA documents. It's just a matter of doing a little reading and research. I don't know that. So now, I mean, we just sort of talked about assigning that to ourselves to do as a first step. I would rather be more proactive around getting that done than waiting the time it would take to resolve getting a consultant in to do it in
Oh, I
several
don't-
months.
It didn't sound like Ruth was saying the consultant should look for the do's and don'ts. Sounded like we should know the do's and don'ts before and then we can put what we want to do out to a consultant. Am I putting?
Okay,
Ruth,
maybe I misunderstood then. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I may have misunderstood that entirely.
Ruth, is that correct?
I'm sorry, Mike, say that again?
You were, I don't think you wanted to hire a consultant to tear into the ARPA documents at the state level. You wanted us to have an understanding of what we can and can't do with the ARPA funds. So then we'll have a better understanding of how we can utilize a consultant, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry, then I misinterpreted.
Ooh. Yep, good. We good on that? Good. Deanna, do you want to talk about the link you sent regarding the city's master plan? I do think the Affordable Housing Trust should be somewhat involved in these
Oh,
in these meetings. I know it didn't make the agenda.
Mhm. That's for the comprehensive plan initiative?
Yeah,
Yeah, if you haven't watched that, I would absolutely encourage everybody to watch it. Jen Goldson is the lead consultant on the city's comprehensive plan. I've actually already emailed her and just said, I'm glad to see you on there, and remember the housing trust is here, and we would love to be involved, and however it makes sense. They're going to be very housing. I mean, and David and Greg can correct me wherever I'm wrong here, but it sounds like the comprehensive plan initiative is going to be pretty housing focused. There was one that was done in 2000 that was
Yeah.
really, really community driven. This one will be somewhat different in the sense that it's consultant driven, but going to be dependent on a lot of community outreach and input. And they have some, they're talking about doing surveys and small group meetings amongst wards, possibly reaching out to particular demographics. There's something called a meeting in a box concept that sounds pretty cool, and maybe something that the Housing Trust could tackle, where you're given all the components of a meeting to get input from the community around housing needs, for example, and then running your own meetings. So there's going to be a lot of effort made to make sure that they reach out to every population, seniors, younger people, families, working people who don't necessarily attend meetings because they're just too busy. So I think that, given again our strategic plan and our plan to be much more engaged and supportive of housing efforts in other parts of the municipality, whether it's committees and boards, this is a good example for us to be involved in and attend meetings. If they're having community meetings, at least one or more of us should probably be there, participate, share the information with other people as members of the trust.
this is one of those things when we talk about advocacy in our strategic plan that we should probably be present at. And I believe that link to that is still on the city's website, right?
Yeah. It's just the recording.
Yep.
And drop Jen an email and just say, hey, I watched the video and wanted to let you know. I think she was appreciative that I sent her an email.
So I
and
would
that we were
urge,
paying attention.
I would urge the members of the trust as a homework assignment to check that first meeting out. The link is on the city website. If you can't find it, I can share it with you, and it's a good start for us. I mean, we did talk about it a lot. Advocacy comes up a lot in our strategic plan, and this is something we can certainly get behind.
And I think also just to, I know that some of the people that I've spoken with were concerned about how the last comprehensive plan again was so community driven that it was really a major focus point of the report. And where this one is not, I would encourage members of the trust to make sure that, it does have that community voice. And as members of the community and members of the trust, we can help promote that.
Terrific.
And
I
also,
just want to interrupt for 1 second. It's definitely designed to be a community-driven plan. The 2001 plan was developed with the support of the Cecil Group. So there was a same situation of a paired consultant, which is really right now just doing the deep dive to present the current conditions. But when it comes to, validating those, does this, sound like it is an accurate representation of what's going on? And maybe for some people, facts will be enlightening, once it's summarized. But when it starts to get into trajectories of where do we go from here, that's all community input.
Good point.
Thanks, Greg. We're gonna rip through some other business here. Can we anyone have anything to update on 100 on Gloucester Ave?
Thank you for asking the question.
I don't have any update.
Did we receive any feedback? Was there just one? I know it
Just
wasn't a
the-
request for proposal, it was a request for like a
Interest, yeah. It's
yeah,
just the-
request for interest. And
just
we,
the one
how
from
many people,
Habitat.
how many organizations were interested at this point? One?
Just one.
RFP follow?
pardon?
What's that?
I mean, that was just a request for interest. So now will an RFP be what follows? And when would that happen?
Don't know. I can't answer. It's not up to me. I think there's a lot of infrastructure work that needs to occur in the neighborhood before anything actually gets underway. So that would kind of take priority.
Okay. 116 East Main Street, are there any updates on that?
Just they withdrew their application to change.
I
it.
saw that. I
Yeah.
saw it was withdrawn. Yep.
Yeah,
That's the update on that one.
Okay, yeah, that's what I figured.
It's withdrawn.
I have heard that there's probably a combination of reasons why the developer withdrew the application. Among them would be the community outpouring of, objection to their not building a unit on site as promised. So
Yeah,
I think that was important for people to know that the building of an on-site unit is part of the inclusionary zoning purpose.
does anyone else have any other business?
Yeah, the Gloucester 400, we're missing it.
What is that?
You go, Ruth.
We've already had like 30 events. There's 30 more coming. Big festivals in August will be Fisheries Month. But on August 12th and 13th, which is a weekend, there's a big series of things that are happening at the State Fish Pier. And then the Heritage Festival is in October. And the KPM Symphony is playing an outdoor pops concert on July 28th at Stagewell Park. I mean, those are big ones. Innisquam Village Players is doing the Gloucester story on the Maritime Gloucester Pier. And the Gloucester 400 is involved with all of these. Some of them are being done with our partners, but they're Gloucester 400 events, and we're coordinating everything that needs to be done to make them successful. Don't miss it. Don't next January say, oh my goodness, I didn't go to one thing. I went to the cemetery tours started 2 weeks ago. And if you're interested in Gloucester's history at all, go to the cemetery tours.
When
fascinating.
are they?
I don't have them memorized, but if you give me 2 minutes, I can give you when the next ones are. On
Oh, Where do
July,
we find the information? Yeah, okay. July what?
Gloucester 400, GloucesterMA400.org. There's an event page. So the next two are July 9th. You have to register for the 10 a.m. one at First Parish. And immediately after that, at 11 a.m. is Clark Cemetery, which is right behind it.
Okay.
So those are the next ones. But in my memory here, I know there's one on Bray Street. There'll be one at, I think the very last one is Oak Grove, which is on Washington Street near George's Coffee Shop. It's just fascinating to learn about people, so.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you, Ruth. With that, anyone else? All right, I'll get the minutes out to people to review. And then we'll see everyone at 5 o'clock on July 17th. We'll go from there.
And Deanna, if you want to set a subcommittee meeting, just contact us, and we'll get that set up for you. If you need to be in a publicly available space if you're going to meet in person. Otherwise, we could accommodate we should be able to accommodate a Zoom meeting.
And it's just myself, Heather, and David, right? I mean, that's the only.
I don't think I volunteered for that.
I know, so it's just myself and Heather. And I think it's really just myself and Heather, so if it's two of us, we're not a quorum, so do we still need to abide by that?
Yeah, you can't do the +1s anymore. Supposedly working groups, subcommittees, whatever their formats are called, need to be publicly posted.
Okay. All right, great,
But again, yeah, Greg's point, we can accommodate that.
okay. I was really trying to wrangle you in there, David, but.
Nice try.
All right, folks.
All
Thanks.
right, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
I
Bye.
All right, have a good night.
Thank you, Mike.
You too.
Thanks.
Nice to see everybody.
Thanks, everyone.